This is Speech 2 for Marion Technical College, Oral Communications. I'm Mason Shingleton. The atomic bombings at Hiroshima and Nagasaki were terrible, terrible acts of war. And many people to this day believe that President Truman took the wrong option. However, what were President Truman's options during these times? Today we're going to look at those. The first option presented to President Truman was firebombing. Firebombing was something not uncommon to the Allies. They had done it both in the Pacific and the European theater. However, it was proving very ineffective at the time. Between 1944 and 1945, there was an estimated 330,000 dead due to firebombing, just in Japan alone. Another 473,000 wounded. And one attack at Tokyo in March of 1945 left over 80,000 dead. And this still proved not enough for the Japanese to surrender. They simply refused to give up. This quickly was realized by the U.S. High Command and was deemed not acceptable for continuing to end the war quickly. The second option would be to have an invasion of the Japanese main islands. This was not their first solution, as through mounting casualties throughout the Pacific campaign as they got closer to the home islands, two examples being Okinawa and Iwo Jima. Iwo Jima ended up with about 6,200 U.S. soldiers dead, and Okinawa had suffered about a 35% casualty rate. So about 1 out of 3 soldiers either were wounded or killed. That's quite a staggering number. Another factor to this is those are just the U.S. statistics that they're basing it on. Their calculations for this invasion. The Japanese toll would be much higher. Plans discovered after the war proved that the Japanese population, not just the military, was prepared to fight a fanatical defense. They would fight tooth and nail to defend their home. And even those that wouldn't fight were fearful of the U.S. soldiers. There's plenty of documented footage from Okinawa and Iwo Jima of whole families throwing themselves off cliffs to their deaths to avoid the U.S. soldiers who had been demonized by the Japanese government. This was quickly ruled out. And the third option, which at first sounds very great, it would be to use the atomic bomb on an unpopulated island and invite the Japanese to come watch. At first, that sounds great. However, looking deeper into it, it turns out to be too risky. There were two main factors in this. Who would the Japanese send to represent them? And would they listen? Would the Japanese population and military listen to whoever they sent, whether it be one scientist or a general or whoever? Would they listen other than maybe the emperor? And the emperor wasn't coming out of his bunker, I can guarantee you that. The other secondary factor would be this: while the bombs and everything, they were proven to, in theory work, they were still very experimental. What happens if you drop this bomb and it's a dud? It doesn't go off. You're going to be risking U.S. lives, Japanese lives, and you're showing great weakness to your enemy. This was ruled out. The fourth option is the one that President Truman took, to bomb a populated area. In this case, Nagasaki and Hiroshima. This was not chosen lightly, though. They wanted to bomb as much as of a military compound as they possibly could. While unfortunately, civilian casualties would be, unfortunately, necessary, almost, as while they were trying to destroy infrastructure, such as factories. Who works in those factories? The Japanese civilians. So, this was unfortunately a necessary evil that they determined that was going to end the war quickly. While many people still disagree with him, President Truman took this evil upon himself and decided that it was necessary to end the war in his mind, to save as many lives as he can, both U.S. and Japanese.